right, boys and girls, we only have 2 chapters left of our story of the Frog Princess, but they're really long. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide them up, and it should take us right till the end of this week, and we'll find out what happens in the story. There are 2 other books that go along with this. Obviously, I won't have time to read them to you, but I will put the names in our classroom stream in case any of you are interested and you want to see if you can purchase them. You can find out what happens in book number 2 and 3. Okay, so chapter 17, part 1. By mid-afternoon, we had reached the river, and it became obvious that we were getting close when we saw the scale was filled with bright, brilliant red lights exploding in a flurry of blazing sparks. Following the river, we came to an old willow growing halfway down the bank, its roots anchoring it to the crumbling mud that the river threatened to wash away. With the scale glowing a fiery, solid red, we knew that we'd found the otter's den. Edric and I peered over the side of the basket as Gracina took a step closer, and there, growing along the water's edge and completely surrounding the den, was a great swath of knee-high plants topped by clusters of clear blue blossoms. Gracina gasped, then turned and scrambled back up the river, away from the thread of the flowers. "Oh dear," she said, wiping a sheen of perspiration from her upper lip once she had gotten far enough away. "That won't do at all." "Are you all right?" I asked, not liking the way she had suddenly gone pale. Yes, I am," she said, patting her face as if to make sure. "But I can't possibly go near the otter's den now. You saw the larkspur. If I were to touch it—" "I don't understand," said Edric. "Why would you be afraid of some plants?" "Aunt Gracina is allergic to flowers." "I'm afraid it's not an allergy, Emma. It's a curse, placed on our family generations ago. It began with Hazel, the first Green Witch." "But I was told that you and Mother were allergic." "We didn't want to frighten you, but this curse affects all the women in our family, starting on the 16th birthday. We thought we had a few years before we had to tell you." "What does this curse do?" asked Edric. Gracina shuddered and looked of horror across her face. "It changes a witch, and she becomes hideous. Her hair becomes coarse, her nose lengthens, growing hooked and lumpy, nearly meeting her chin. Her face and body are covered with warts. Her voice turns into an ugly cackle, and her personality—" "That sounds just like grandmother. Do you mean it was the curse that made her look that way?" Gracina nodded. She didn't believe in the curse until it was too late. Edric scratched his head with his toe, the jerking of his leg making the basket shake. "Isn't there any way to break the curse? Surely a family of witches—" "The curse is very old. According to the story I heard, Hazel was a lovely young woman and an already accomplished witch who threw a party to celebrate her 16th birthday, inviting all the local princes and princesses, witches and fairies. Hazel had a green thumb and was known for growing the most beautiful flowers in the region. As the guests left at the end of the evening, she gave each one a bouquet that had been charmed to last a lifetime. However, some unexpected guests had arrived, so she ran short of bouquets. When the last fairy stood at the castle door, having received nothing more than an apology, she cursed the witch Hazel and all of her female descendants. Unfortunately, part of the curse involves an unpleasant disposition, and Hazel became too surly to do anything about it. When she died, she took the solution to the curse with her. Fairies, however, live for a very long time, so the curse lives on in us. After our 16th birthday, we don't dare touch a flower for the fear of falling victim to Hazel's fate." "That's terrible," said Edric. "Don't worry, Emma. After you turn 16, I'll never bring you flowers." "Gee, thanks," I said, certain he wouldn't have anyway. Gracina wrung her hands in despair. "I'm sorry, Emma. I don't dare go near those flowers." "Can't you get rid of them with a spell?" asked Edric. "No. Even touching them with my magic would bring on the transformation." "It's all right," I said. "I wanted to do it myself anyway. But if you could help me get ready—" "Of course," she said, but she still looked worried. "I feel very bad about this, you know. It's terribly dangerous. We'll just have to take every precaution." Gracina nodded as she'd come to a decision. "All right. What can I do to help?" "First, we need to find a few things. I would have preferred to use flower petals to make my skirt, but the curse made that impossible if Gracina was going to help. After finding velvetly heart-shaped leaves, we set about collecting the rest of my supplies. Aunt Gracina picked some broad leaves that I folded to make pouches, filling one with pine sap and another with bits of mica we chipped from a large rock. Pine needles and spider webs went into the other pouches, and I found a straight twig that wasn't too long or too thick, one that felt just right in my hand. I directed Gracina to a spot by the river where I had seen dragonflies zigzagging above the water on their own mysterious errands. We waited on the riverbank while Edric caught a snack, bringing me an assortment of dragonfly wings on his return. I was just too excited to be hungry. Once we were together again, we made our way to a sunny spot at the edge of the meadow with sun-warmed boulders to sit on and enough insects to keep Edric happy. I tried to use the spiderweb thread to sew myself a leafy skirt, but Frog's fingers aren't made for holding needles, so Gracina had to do it. While she sewed, I made my magic wand, spreading pine sap on the end of the twig before dipping it into the pouch filled with bits of sparkling mica. When I'd finished the wand, I sorted through the dragonflies Edric had brought me, looking for the prettiest. After eliminating a few because they were either too big or too small, I chose a buttercup yellow pair with pale green veining. Not only were they the right size, but they looked nice with my velvety emerald green skirt. Once I had the skirt on, I asked Gracina to glue the wings to my back with another dab of pine sap. They drooped a little bit, and we were trying to fix it when Edric returned, his stomach bulging with all the insects he'd eaten. "I'm ready," I announced, although my wings still weren't quite right. "Just a minute," said Gracina. Taking a chain from around her neck, she showed me her far-seeing ball encased in gold filigree. She blew on it, and the ball frosted over with her breath, turning milky and opaque. "Now tap it," she said, holding the spear out to me. I did as she ordered, and my face appeared in the ball. "There," she said, making herself comfortable on the boulder. "It's focused on you now, and will show me everything that goes on around you. I can watch from here. I'll know right away if you need me, and I'll be there in an instant, curse or no curse." "Gracina," I began, "it's the only way I'll let you go without me." "That's fine for you," said Edric, "but I'm going with her." "You can't," I exclaimed. "It won't work if anyone else is there." Edric held up his hand as if that could stop my protest. "I won't go the whole way. The otter will never see me. I just want to make sure you're all right." I was touched by his concern. He could be so obnoxious at times, so sweet at others. Sometimes I just didn't know what to make of Edric. After saying goodbye to Gracina and promising her that I'd be careful, I started back to the otter's den with Edric at my side. He seemed cheerful enough at first, but as we neared the river, his expression became grim. "I've been thinking," he said. "Why don't we just go to the otter's den while he's out and find the bracelet ourselves? And risk having him come back and find us there? We'd be trapped in his den just waiting for him to eat us." "That's true," he said. But if one of us kept him away, Edric, we talked about this." "I know, but I don't think you should do it. You're not invincible, you know, and you're not as experienced as I am. You've never had to face the wrath of a charging dragon or a goblin gone berserk. I can't help it. I'm worried. If something happens to you, I'll end up a lonesome old frog. Give me the swamp fairy stuff and I'll go instead." I tried not to smile, but it wasn't easy. The thought of Edric in a swamp fairy skirt was too funny for words, but the fact that he had offered to take my place meant a lot to me. "That's an awfully nice offer, Edric, but I'm afraid it won't work. I don't think you'd make a very believable swamp fairy." "I don't know. This is going to work, Edric. I know what I'm doing. I hope," I thought, trying to look optimistic. What if the otter didn't believe me? What if Gracina couldn't get there in time? The consequences of failure would be far more worse than my usual humiliation. If I didn't do this just right, the otter would eat me. If I succeeded, however, Edric and I would be humans again before the end of the day. Either way, what happened next would determine my future, or even whether I was going to have one. The shadows were growing longer when Edric and I approached the otter's den. With both of us caught up in what I was about to do, we forgot to pay any attention to our surroundings. When we heard the thud of running paws, we barely had time to hop for cover before the huge white dog came into sight. It was the same beast that had tried to eat me, the same one the old toad had chased away. Although we hid in the tall grass, it was obvious from the way he was sniffing the air that the dog had caught our scent and would soon find us. "What are we going to do?" I whispered to Edric. "If I go in the water now, my costume will be ruined, and I'll have to start all over again." "Don't worry," said Edric. "I'll handle this. Look for the otter's den under the willow's root. I'll meet you back here as soon as I get rid of the dog. Just make sure you get the bracelet back." Without telling me what he was going to do, Edric crawled out of his hiding place and hopped directly into the dog's path. "Hey, doggy!" shouted Edric. "I'm over here." The dog had been sniffing the ground, but at the sound of Edric's voice, its head perked up. Edric began to hop about erratically to get the dog's attention. I watched in horror as the beast spotted Edric and bounded after him, its tail wagging so hard that it was just a blur. "There you are! I've been looking all over for you," said the dog. Edric took off, hopping faster than I would have ever thought possible. "Yeah?" yelped the dog. "Wait for me." They were well down the path before I knew what had happened, and although I wanted to go after them to stop Edric from sacrificing himself, I realized that not only would it be useless, but it was already too late. Edric was a much better hopper than I was, and I could never catch up with them. The only thing I could do was follow my plan and get the bracelet back. With any luck, Edric and I would both be successful, and we really would meet back in the tall grass. Worrying about Edric made it harder to concentrate. I thought I'd gotten to know him during our travels, but I would never have expected him to be so brave. Edric, of all people. For the first time, I began to believe that his boasts might not have been unfounded after all. Watching for signs of either Edric or the dog, I left my hiding place and hopped to the old willow tree, sitting down beside the half-concealed entrance to the otter's den. I hadn't been waiting long when the otter appeared, a fat fish flopping between his jaws. When the otter saw me, his eyes grew wide and his mouth dropped open. The fish he had been carrying fell out to the ground, thrashing and grasping for air.